Hello everyone, Murray the Pie Man back again to look at a different game. You can see we're going through some adverts for games from the 90s, and what's this coming up? Yes, it is Silent Service 2, the sequel to the original Silent Service, a game released in 1985. Silent Service 2 was 1990. Now, I'm going to go through this one. We're going to go through some channel info and just a kind of explanation about where I've been all these weeks. So, yeah, quite a nice little picture of a gecko on top of a torpedo. Don't know why that's there. So, yeah, I will do some history of the game. But this is a first interesting thing. So what there is here is a bit of a security protocol. Again, games used to have these. If you don't know, this was to prove that it was a legitimate copy. The idea was in the game pack there was a whole load of pictures of ships, and you had to identify them. So the Silent Service games placed you in charge of an American sub in the Pacific War. Now I played the original on the Amstrad CPC way back in the day. It wasn't in 1985. I played it in the 90s, and to be honest, it was a cracking game. It was atmospheric. One of the games that actually the Amstrad's green screen really lent itself to, giving it a kind of giving it a lot more atmosphere, really claustrophobic atmosphere, but with very basic graphics and quite a complicated control system. This one, Silent Service 2, they did some upgrades. So for example, there's me in the Philippines starting a patrol, and you can see bits of World War II happen. It's literally set straight after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And literally in this part, all you do is you drive around and you try to find a convoy. So you can see here it said there's a target, but it's found us, so we're under attack, so we are forced to engage. This is your basically radar screen, so it's not actually based on sonar, it's kind of based on what you can see and a vaguely hydrophone. Again, other submarine games later on did actually come in and do a lot more with this. What I do like is we've got dusk there, that lovely purple sky. You can see I'm peering through my periscope, currently sitting at periscope depth, and closing in on the enemy fleet. I can't identify what's there yet. One of the things that you can see is you will quite often have fleets of ships matched by destroyers. This is what I'm trying to identify at the moment on this map screen, is what I'm actually facing, and I'm kind of moving to intercept. So for all it's said, I'm under attack. No one's actually gunning for me yet. That will happen in the future. So, first thing I think I'll wrap up. Obviously, I will interrupt if anything interesting is happening. But the first thing that I will bring up is some channel info before I go into talk about more. Oh, there's my torpedo launch. I think, yes, I'm within range there. So, yeah, you might have wondered where I've been. In short, I've not been posting too many videos for two reasons. The first is I'm actually stuck in Wing Commander 3. The last video I did, I got stuck in a mission. Now I'm going to have another crack at it, but I was kind of getting frustrated with it. So the other thing is that I've had a lot going on, so quite a bit going on in the life of the Pie Man. Nothing major, no, don't worry, I'm not vague booking here, but basically I've just been very busy. Life, work and whatnot has got in the way, and when I'm tired I don't really feel the urge to oh yep, I've hit something. I don't generally feel the urge to do these recordings. There's me firing the deck gun as well. I don't actually know what I'm attacking. I'm looking at this on a very small screen, so I'm recording this narration after the event, so I can't actually see what I'm sinking. Firing again though. I think it's something quite hefty because oh, missed something. Something quite hefty because because you can see I'm being attacked there. I'm actually taking hits, but I think I've sunk whatever it was that I was attacking. So looks like we have clear seas, and there's me just looking through. There's your panels. There's our damage report thing. Just a bit of minor hull damage, but there is something else here. Or is it? I think that's just the remains of the ship sinking. Yep, so that was a patrol boat, so I've sunk something, so I'll go and hunt for more enemies. So there's one. I can choose the target. Of course I will attack, because again you're looking for tonnage, and I do appear to have appeared right in the middle of this lot. So just coming about, because since I'm right in the middle, I might as well take advantage. However, I am on the surface here, so I'm amazed that I'm not getting attacked. What you can usually see is you can make out things like destroyers very quickly. Yeah, taking some hits there. Because they start getting a very big... The tail on these things indicates, I guess, yes, I appear to have dropped into a nest of destroyers, which is probably not a good thing. Now, one of the things you might see me do quite often in this game is I do attack destroyers what we would call on the nose. In reality, it wasn't. I mean, again, the game was quite primitive. It was very hard to get a torpedo hit in the bow of a ship because... Nope, something happened there. But yeah, it's very hard to get a torpedo hit on an enemy ship from the front because they just weren't that accurate. If you think you're firing at a slight angle, and yeah, I'm trying to avoid and hide. Obviously, when you go under, you've probably heard the change in engine note. That's me on batteries. I think we will see the depth charge. Oh no, I got rammed by the enemy ship. So yeah, I'm taking some damage, and I think I've actually got hull damage. I think, yeah, I've also gone too deep. So that's one of the things here. I was so busy driving that I didn't watch my depth. And, yep, flank speed ahead. So I am trying to get away. I am very deep, hoping that the depth will kind of protect me. Using Mother Sea to hold me, but I am looking to make sure I'm not taking any damage, or check the state of my ship, because very soon I will be taking... depth charge damage, and one of those is moving slowly. I wonder if I did manage to hit something. One of the things I quite often will do in these situations, and again you'll possibly see later in this video, is that I will use the aft torpedoes quite often, particularly because the destroyers in the game's AI isn't the fanciest, and the destroyers will quite often go in a kind of circular pattern, and when they do that they become predictable, and you can, if you're clever, drop a torpedo out in just the right spot that you can get a good hit, but it doesn't always work like that. And again, you can hear the pings of the sonar. So this is what really made these games quite appealing to me, was this idea that yes, you quite often do your sort of you do your sort of attack, and then you try to skulk away before the, ideally, if you were playing this like a sort of more sensible submarine commander, what you'd actually be doing is attacking quickly, particularly at the merchant ships. Oh, here come the depth charges. And again, these scenes were kind of annoying because they were unskippable, but I did find they kind of gave you that sense of creeping inevitability of the depth charges. You don't get to sit there and avoid. You don't get a thing of, it's just you get to wait these, couple of seconds, 3 or 4 seconds, for this little cinematic to play out while you get pummeled. And so for all it's slightly annoying that you can't skip it, it did give you that feeling of absolute dread when the depth charges come. And this is kind of the atmospheric bit. I mean, for all that you're watching me, as you can see there, I've got some damage. And that's my big risk, is obviously if my submarine takes too much damage, it will sink. And yeah, this is again more depth charges coming in. I think, if I remember, I don't think I'm going to survive this, but this was the idea. You go in, you kind of fire a spread of torpedoes at the opposing at an enemy convoy, and then you basically duck down and you spend the time avoiding the what I would call the big boys, the destroyers or that sort of thing. Occasionally you would actually, there you go, you see I've got too much hull damage, I've got surface, but the problem being that even with the emergency tank exploding, I can't actually surface fast enough, so I am taking more hull damage. I'm trying to move, but this is the thing, what I do like about it is as your submarine gets more and more damaged, it becomes harder to avoid, so it does have that level of, I wouldn't say realism, but it is that thing where if you get out of a situation like this, which I didn't there, you're usually quite happy. And again, this idea of you go in and you would run you'd run a patrol and try to take out as much tonnage. You can set it later, so again there's a selection of submarines. I'm going very much for the easy setting, but one of the things I do like starting in the Philippines. The reason for this is sadly you can't set the name of your ship, but the reason why I picked the Philippines is because it's got this quite fun part that your actual submarine base will get overrun, so you sometimes can't return to that, and you've got to then make, again, just for, bear in mind the game has no story beyond the story of the war in the Pacific in World War II, and indeed you can, if you feel like it, if the save game system works, and if you feel like running it that far, you can actually play this game all the way through to the end of the war. And you will see some new classes of submarine coming if you set your date later. But yes, one of the things is you lose the Manila base, and it means that you've then got to try and go to a different base. You're not always, if you're in port when the base goes, you usually end up defaulting to Pearl Harbor or somewhere like that. But I quite like it. There you go. You see, I've just lost Manila, so I can't. For all that this is still my patrol zone, I've actually now got to think about where I go. So I will now engage another fleet. Now, while I'm doing this again, this looks like a more conventional fleet engagement. I think we should see a fairly big cluster of ships there. What this will mean is it'll be some freight. I'm getting the scope in there. It'll be some freight with 1 or 2 destroyer escorts. And usually, the sensible person, of which I am not, will take out the freighter, try to spread the torpedoes to get the freighters, and then avoid the destroyers. What I end up doing usually is taking on the destroyers. Well, I was firing my spread, but taking on the destroyers, I can quite often get them. There's a freighter, yeah. I can quite often get them with the aft torpedoes, so again, not as realistic. But on to the channel, before I talk a bit more about Silent Service, and specifically Silent Service 2, and my history with it. Channel stuff. The idea is, yeah, so I told you I got stuck. It's an escort mission. It's really giving me jip. At the moment, I'm not sure if I can beat it. I'm wanting to go back to it at some point, but it's just one of those things of I'm getting frustrated. It's not fun. Plus, I've got a lot of, like I say, I'm doing extra uni. I'm doing work. I'm studying for a degree. I'm also working normally. I have a family to deal with. Christmas was coming up, and it was just a little too much for me to also put together YouTube videos at night. I tended, when I came home, I didn't want to sit and record a video. I wanted to sit and usually chill out and play Star Trek Online or something. We just relax a little. But part of it was also I was getting a bit burned out on Wing Commander. It's a game I love. Don't get me wrong, but I was finding it becoming a bit of a slog, and that is an issue. So my hope for the future of the channel, if I can pluck up the enthusiasm, and that's always a big risk, is that I'm actually going to run several games. Again, I thought before I'll break it up by doing little interims with things like Silent Service. I did the video on Max, I did the one on Starfleet Academy, and that was fun and all, but what I thought I might actually do is, as well as these little individual ones, I mean, I like throwing in little individual games, I would also start mixing about and actually run a few games like running parallel. So one of the things is I'm still going to try and get Wing Commander and get it finished, but it'll take longer because what I'm planning to do is not do Wing Commander every month or every other month. What I was planning to do is start a number of games and see where I go from that. And I think that would be the idea for the channel going forward. Is it means that quite often I'll record 2 or 3 videos at a time on the one game, so I could still say record 3 Wing Commanders, but then the next time I sit down I'm not going to go, oh, more Wing Commander. I'll be going into something like, for example, I did want to continue. This channel started with Myst. I did 1 video on Riven. I wouldn't mind doing more, although it's a bit of a pain to record, but we can work around that. And there were other ones. For example, one that I did have a quick play with a while ago and thought I really should go back to is the first-person shooter Dark Forces, the Star Wars themed one. Again, I've done quite a few Trek themed games, and I thought maybe doing a Star Wars one. There's also a few other games that I've mucked about with them, and maybe like showcase or games that. And again, sometimes it will be more like this, just either video of me with a narration, or if I feel like doing a lot more editing, like I did in the Max video. Things more like that, with me sort of reviewing a game overall, just to put a bit of variety into the channel and put a bit of variety into me, so I don't start getting sick again. As I say, I was beginning to get annoyed with Mark Hamill, and the world's never a good place if you get annoyed with Mark Hamill. So, on to Silent Service, and again, like I said, Silent Service, the game. So just looking there, yes, I'm trying. What I'm trying to do is lead ships. I'm not actually that good at it. I'm not a very good submarine commander. I'm gonna break that now. I'm probably best not being left in command of a submarine. But you can see there, I've got a ship bearing towards me. That one, on the other hand, those freighters are trying to escape. it is, for all that you'd think hitting something heading straight towards you is easier, it's actually a much smaller target, whereas if you can set the right angle on the bow, you can quite often hit things in the broadsides. But you can see there's my torpedoes launching. I'm still at periscope depth, so I'm still quite hard to see, but I think we do have a ship on intercept for me. I don't know if it's just a patrol boat, but that's the idea. Is again, you can see, yeah, I think that's the one that's. It does just look like a wee patrol boat, so I don't think it'll actually give me too much trouble. But as you can see, I'm firing torpedoes like they're free. Now, obviously, the danger of this is you have a limited supply of torpedoes, and they also take time to reload, so you've got to watch out for that as well. But it's a nice gameplay mechanic. I mean, just in general, the gameplay is actually pretty solid. A bit finicky, but I do enjoy it. Now, like I say, my history with this specific game. Now, it was released in 1990, so it is very old. Well, actually, it's now... Dear God, this is 30 years old. You're watching a 30-year-old video game. Now, let that sink in for a bit. But I didn't play it. I actually started playing this game, if I remember, it was in the late 90s, on my old P75. I actually picked this up. It was on a budget level. It was on in a budget. I think it was also at a cracked case. So I think I did pick this up for initially when I picked up the original game a few quid. Now this is actually the second copy I bought. GOG had a sale, and I think I picked up this and the original Silent Service for the princely sum of something in the something in the region of £2 or something. So I possibly paid more for it now, but I got Silent Service 1 free with it, so it might have been a bit more, it might have been £2 or £3, but they used to have these CDs in old jewel cases, usually dotted about. Quite often they might be in a computer shop, you might be in PC World, but to be honest, they were in some supermarkets, bookshops, that sort of thing, so I honestly can't remember. I just remember seeing it, thinking, ooh, that's cheap. Now, one of the fun things was, if I remember... No, I think I could play this under Windows. There used to be a weird thing. If you remember, those of you who remember the Windows 95 days, somewhat 3.1 as well, you had to, on occasion... drop the game right back into DOS mode. The idea was that some of these old DOS games, like this one, could only deal with the first 512k of your computer's memory. So you might be sitting there with, a whopping and terrifying 8 megabytes of RAM, but the computer would only look at certain games would only look at the first 512k of it, which could be a bit frustrating at times. I remember getting Dalek Attack running was quite tricky, an old Doctor Who game. But I do remember playing this sometimes. Now, the other thing was it couldn't interact with many sound cards, so I was actually playing this on the old internal speaker sound. And to be honest, there you go. So, actually, yes, a small supply ship and 2 patrol craft. So that's not a huge tonnage. Again, you are judged on tonnage. Oh, we're under attack. You do get all that info of what parts you're visible. So we're at periscope depth. We are approaching head on. Now, like I say, sometimes you do find fleets with things like carriers in them, and it's one of those things that you are really better off if you come across a big fleet with battleships and carriers. You're better leaving them alone. Yeah, you see, so there's something big. That looks aircraft carrier-y, if I'm honest. But I've got a feeling I'm going to be an idiot here and decide to hurl a few torpedoes their way, just because it makes me feel like I'm doing something. Yeah, like, look at those trails. Those are fast ships. Really what I should do here is drop down to about 100 feet and hide and just hope no one sees me. But I'm not that sensible. So like I say, the 30-year-old game, picked this up dirt cheap, and I actually got a lot of joy out of it, because it was just quite a fun game to start up. You start it up, and you're on a little patrol, and again, I've actually found it, playing it now, roughly the same. You can sit down, and if you just want to kill an hour on something, you don't want to do anything particularly serious, you can spend an hour immersed in the world of being a submarine commander, but it's not too complicated. So, for example, one of the games I played later, which was I actually got a lot of fun out, was Silent Hunter 2. The Silent Hunter series kind of went on from this, and they went into a lot more realism. So, for example, if you're playing it in real time, you'd actually have, if you're on the surface, you'd have the motion of the ship, which would affect things like the firing of your deck guns. You had to deal with anti-aircraft. There were certain things like you only had so many torpedoes in the ship; others were stored elsewhere, and so there were points where if you wanted to reload your torpedoes, you actually had to surface because they had to open a deck hatch to get the torpedoes from one storage area to another. It was also, the Silent Hunter 2 was a U-boat game, so you were playing as the Germans. Still some really good atmospheric stuff, some really, obviously it was more historically accurate and hence harder. But there was also a nice touch with it. I never managed to get it running. It ran through, I think it was the old GameSpy network. And the idea was, this might not be carriers actually, we'll see. But the idea was that in Silent Hunter 2, that is that whole fleet. Yeah, that looks like I've annoyed someone. In Silent Hunter 2, the idea was that those are some big ships coming down on me. This maybe wasn't my best idea, and however, instead of retreating, I am poking them more. Silent Hunter 2, sorry, through the old GameSpy network. If you had a friend who had the game Destroyer command, what you could actually do is play multiplayer where you would command a submarine and they would command a destroyer, which I thought was quite a fun feature. Yeah, this is me having I think I've hit something. Having a bit too much, a bit of a misunderstanding in the bravado department. I've had to drop, you can see there things go dark. I've had to drop the scope there because basically if that thing's still sticking up when a boat goes over, you're in trouble. Again, I should be watching my depth, but I am trying to avoid, because strangely enough, having torpedoed something with several fast ships moving around me, might not be a big fleet actually, like I say, I'm watching this on a very small screen. So the idea is to evade. Now, again, you are working with the AI here. They do have a bit of randomness. It always confuses me that a computer effectively knows where I am, and it's got to pretend it doesn't. So at this point, the computer is pretending not to know where I actually am. But what they would do is they would move around. The idea is that you keep your speed low, but you want to be moving out of the search area. You want to be moving out of where the ships are looking for you, because what you don't want to be is caught. But if you move too quickly, so if you have your engines on flank speed, for example, there's a risk that your propellers will be picked up with the hydrophones. Obviously, if they get close to you, they can sometimes pick up on the sound. They can pick up with sonar, so that's where you get the pips and the clicks from it. So that does add a bit of tension. Again, your old submarine movie stuff where you're standing there hearing pew, pew. And indeed, you got that as a ship passed over you, and that's them trying to get ranging for their depth charges. But yeah, you can see there I'm slowly creeping away, and I do think, now again, there's a lot of the controls I can't remember in this. I was kind of having to refer. Didn't have a printout or anything. I think I'm once again going to be slightly daft here, because they're looking for me in the wrong place. So effectively, I'm home free. Effectively, if I could remember the time compression button, what I should actually do is just keep moving away in this direction and hope that they give up. But by the looks of things, I'm coming up to. I've got the scope up underwater. I cannot see anything underwater, but I'm coming up. I'm just having a look, making sure. Now again, there you've got the controls like the depth under your ship, so you can actually have situations where you're in shallow water, and that you can't dive as deep as you like. I have run the ship aground before, but here I am. I think by looking at my bearing, so I think my plan at the moment is going to be to fire some aft torpedoes at them and see if I can't. But again, your torpedoes have limited range, so I might be too far away, because I am all sort of dropped up to full speed, because they're not looking for me in the right place, so I'm risking the high speed screws to get rid of them. But we shall see how this works out. There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of, and I think I was looking at the range there. I can't actually read the numbers there. If I remember, the torpedoes usually have a 3,000 or so range. It's whether I'm going to do something daft like fire at them, or whether I've just decided to exercise the better part of valour. And I think this is me having a quick look through just to see the condition of the boat. and see what I can do. Yeah, and I think it depends on which ship I'm actually looking at, because again I'm trying to time it. Bow planes up. I think I might be trying to surface to just make a clean getaway. Or I might be trying to attract their attention so that they attack me. Again, these are the daft things I do while playing submarine simulators. Don't get onto submarine commanded by me, because you can see here, technically, and again, this was another thing Silent Hunter did actually have the idea that your tower has cleared the water. So, for example, you, in this game, unless you're at a depth of 0, you can't get out onto the surface, and you're less visible, you're periscope visible. Where that's the idea. And yep, I've started firing the deck gun at. I think that could be them firing at me, but they've definitely seen me. And you can see the range closing. There's the aft torpedo firing, so I think I'm actually trying to get the range on that one. It could be the deck gun. Yep, but I'm taking some shell hits because they're firing at me. Yep. But this is my idea, to try and sink as many of these destroyers as possible. I'm doing that by hurling all my aft torpedoes. I've definitely got one of them on fire. And trying to use the deck gun, which again, in a submarine versus several destroyers, isn't your best plan. But nonetheless, this is what I'm trying. So we shall see if we get anywhere with this. Ranging the deck gun was always tricky. You didn't get any reports, you just got kind of these splashes before or after, and you had to kind of change your elevation. A bit finicky, but I'm just checking to see how much damage I've taken, because obviously if I take too much damage, the submarine will sink. Though that green thing's your fuel. You get the torpedoes. I'm also looking at how close they're getting, because again, I'm racing at full speed away from them, but they will be closing. Ah, yes, I've dived, so I've now decided that it's too risky, and this is me back in being attacked and hiding. Again, just keeping an eye on my depth, because that was a crash dive. And here come the depth charges. Sometimes I'd actually stop while they're passing over to see if I could completely hide. Again, possibly that range I was, because they possibly have a fairly decent idea of where I am. It's tense, isn't it? And indeed, when you look at it, this is most of this game, is you sitting there while destroyers circle above you. You sitting down there at low speed. Oh, I think I've gone too deep. Yep. So there was a thing you can do as well. Yeah, so I've exceeded crush depth, and that's what I'm worried about, is that I'm damaging my hull now. It does also change. Your crust depth will actually change depending on how much damage you've got. So if you take a lot of damage, you can actually find that your submarine isn't. And so again, it's this kind of increasing problem that you're down very deep, and your hull starts buckling, and then you find, oh wait, hang on. Now, if I remember in this one, it's also if I actually blow the emergency tanks, I'll surface. So I can't remember if this game had the thing of, yeah, you'll surface and you won't actually be able to dive for a while they kind of refill the emergency tanks. So it basically screws up your buoyancy. But I think I don't seem to be taking too much damage now. So I think this is again the waiting game. And again, like I say, most of the game it's a few minutes of you on the surface launching torpedoes at the things, and then another few minutes of you sitting while destroyers try to take pot shots at you. But I think there were 3 there. It does look like I've taken down 2 of them. Well, taken down 1 of them, and 1 of them looks damaged, so it's not moving as quickly. So this is kind of, again, unrealistic. A submarine, I'm sure there will be situations where they said, yes, actually, a particularly good submarine commander did sink 3 destroyers on his own, but in general that wasn't the case. In general, submarines in World War II did usually go for the convoys, Sometimes I did go for military targets. You can see there, my forward tubes are all full, but my aft tubes are empty. And I think I've only got one torpedo left at the aft, so it's whether I decide to run away and exercise the better part of valour, or whether I decide to see if, with what I've got left, if I can take out both these rather impressive armed to the teeth warships. But I'm not sure I am still going up, I am still surfacing, so I'm changing my depth. But I'm not changing my heading by the looks of it. Still at a 270 heading, so. Stern tube reloaded, so I do have a torpedo. Oh, I've got 3 torpedoes there. So yes, what I'm waiting is for the aft tubes to reload, and then I think I'm going to take another shot at poking those rather large scary bears that are on my tail. I've got some hull damage again. I'm checking to see what state my submarine's in. One of the things you could do, which was fun to get rid of it, there was actually a button that will release. You can only do it the once, but there's a fake debris button, which basically releases stuff that looks like you've sunk. And that was if you were in serious trouble, you could release that. But the only issue was that you could only do it once, so it was kind of once per patrol. So again, if you did that, you really wanted to head back to base. To make sure you could get it. So again, I've got the scope up. Yep, this is where we can see planes up, scope up. Yes, Murray's going into stupidity again. Once again, the lives of the poor sailors under my command are going to be risked by my hubris and self-obsession with trying to up my patrol tonnage. Yeah, I feel sorry for them, the men and women of the good ship, whatever this was, Flying Fish. I don't know. There's one that they use, and it's actually, again, some of these are real submarine names. There's one submarine you can get, the USS Bowfin, which was actually a ship which did a lot of attacks on Japanese shipping straight after Pearl Harbor. It's sometimes known as the Pearl Harbor Avenger. The problem is that I do read it Glaswegian as the USS Bowfin. If you don't know your Glaswegian, Bowfin means horrible. If you found some food that you didn't like, you would say, "Haw man, that's Bowfin." And these are those little meanders that you might be able to expect from the channel now that I'm changing format slightly. We just don't know. So there we go, scope up. I think they've spotted me. Maybe not. So there's one that's on fire, there's one that isn't. Can I get... Again, they're kind of attacking on the bow, so... But I am trying to fire a couple of torpedoes, because again I think I've only got the 4 aft torpedoes, so if I can get a hit on the forward ones, that would be ideal. Again, not a good sign of my command that the bow tubes are constantly full and the stern tubes are frequently empty, showing, oh, that was a hit, so I think he's sunk, and that should leave me with 1, so it's now a one-on-one fight, myself against the destroyer. A cat and mouse game, except in this one the mouse has delusions of cathood. So yes, I think I'm coming up to the surface. I'm hopefully looking for this other enemy destroyer. There we go, scanning around. Yep. So that's what I got. A light cruiser, not a bad haul. So yeah, look for. Hopefully, I will start getting a few videos made up for the channel. Look for a selection of games to be coming up, not just one focused one. I might even make a new banner, just a generic banner. Who knows? This is me trying to find my submarine base now that it's been taken over. There's a new one down in Australia. Or I'm going to the land down under. Bring women low and then chunder. So, yeah, obviously, as always, if you like what you're seeing in there, I've got all row flags. That shows that I've had a good tonnage. And I think I get a little medal. Wee bronze star will come up. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment. I would appreciate any comments. Anything you'd like to see more of, anything you'd like to see less of. Do you want to hear me stop talking? Tough buns, lots of people want to hear me stop talking. It's not happening. If you want to talk to me on Twitter, I am at Pieman70. That's a capital P, capital M, and the number 70. But hopefully I will be back in a month with a new video, but no promises, because again, life can get in the way. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time. But until then, bye for now.